This is Eureka, Missouri, a city that floods repeatedly. We're talking catastrophic floods twice in less than 2 years.
What the fuck?
Yet more rain and dangerous flooding are affecting millions in parts of the Midwest and South tonight.
Across the Merrimack River, notorious for flooding very quickly.
Towns like Eureka and others, well, they're in for a rough few days.
But just 12 miles downstream is a town called Valley Park. It stayed pretty dry thanks to a levee, a giant artificial embankment that surrounds the city, designed to keep water out. Valley Park got their levee largely because the city was willing and able to pay for it. It kept their own town dry, but here's what flooding looked like in neighboring towns, including...
Oh my God, rich town. Oh my God. Rich towns make levees, and then it fucks over the little towns, because then there's even more overflow because the water has to go somewhere. Come on now. That's too much levee. Come on now. Way too much levee. Don't put no levee on that.
Eureka that didn't have levees.
The Valley Park levee withstood the water.
That levee holding could be part of the problem.
He suspected the same levee that protected Valley Park may have been to blame for devastating flooding in
Get that levee off of there.
and Arnold.
Can a levee protect one town while making flooding worse for others, especially towns that can't afford a levee? A fluid mechanics lab, a 13-foot-long model of a river, and some adorable tiny houses will help us find out. People love levees. There's about 100,000 miles of these embankments across the U.S., sometimes concrete, sometimes earthen. For centuries, we've built them between humans and rivers.
I'm proud of this community. I did that meme, and only one person out of like 41,899 people in here, only one person was like black scent. Like normally there's so many more baiters. Only one this time. Pretty good. It's called growth.
Levee workers transport material by hand, by truck, by boat.
We even write songs about them.
Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry.
If it keeps on raining, levee's going to break.
When the levee breaks, have no place to stay.
But it turns out, even when levees are effective, they can still be devastating. As far back as 1852, levees came with a very important warning. Charles Ellet Jr., a famed U.S. civil engineer, cautioned that levees confine rivers and cause them to rise higher and flow faster. And relying on levees encourages a false security. But he was largely ignored. Levees became the default for flood control, mostly funded and constructed by local entities. Some riverside communities that could afford it built taller levees for more protection, while less fortunate neighbors dealt with the devastating effects. To show you what we mean, we went to the banks of the Mississippi River, to a fluid mechanics lab where a team of engineers from the University of Minnesota built us this landscape model to test flood scenarios. Overhead, a scanner collects 3D data to measure exactly what's happening. It's a generic model of a river with no levees. That means when the water level increases, it overflows and spreads across the floodplain, often creating important wetland habitat that's home to a variety of species. Putting in levees cuts rivers off from this land, destroying floodplains and wetlands. It allows people to convert these areas into farmland or build houses on them. And while levees protect these communities from flooding, they constrict the river into a narrow channel, making the water flow faster and higher.
Why are there so many homes in the U.S. built next to rivers? I don't know, because it's literally why. It's like asking a question: why are there so many homes in the world built next to rivers? That's not a U.S. thing, dog. That's a human thing. I don't know if you know that or not, but like rivers are kind of everywhere. And also, they are an incredibly important source for sustenance, survival. It's why, you know, people build around big bodies of water that you can drink out of. And they're also kind of pointing to why it's important to be around a river, and lakes, you know, makes it easier, less of hassle to transport water from one area to another one. Also used to be trade routes on big bodies of water too. It's just like we've always literally been around big bodies of water.
That creates a bottleneck leading to additional flooding upstream. If all levees are the same height, both sides should be about equally protected from the average flood. And if the river rises so much that the water overtops the levee, then both sides should flood pretty equally. But let's say people on one side of the river lobby for higher levees. Now, instead of both sides flooding, only one floods. The side with the lower levees is at a clear disadvantage. So what can people in flood zones do? We can't just pick up and move major cities.
Wait, what? Oh, this person clearly has never watched Ben Shapiro's videos, so I don't even know if I can take them seriously. It's called Just Move, forehead, okay? Owned. Get wrecked, libtard. Yeah, that's right. Why don't you just sell your home and move?
We need levees to protect places like these. There is an alternative. We could build levees farther back so rivers could still expand and create wetlands. These setback levees ease flooding on both sides rather than protecting one city at the expense of another. This approach is common in other parts of the world, like Holland, for example, but not in the US. Here, we tend to build levees right next to rivers. Some communities that can afford to build higher levees do so at the risk of others with little oversight.
Well, yeah, why would we? Do they have freedom? Sorry. Never heard of that country. Doesn't exist. We're better than El Salvador, and that's all I care about, okay?
We do have the Army Corps of Engineers, a federal...
Apologize to that chatter. What do you mean, bro? The Netherlands are like an entire country that's built on top of water. The fuck are you talking about? They're literally talking about how you can still live right on top of water and yet not have, you know, not have significant flooding. Isn't Houston entirely built on wetland? That's why it constantly fucking floods.
Federal agency tasked with regulating a fraction of all levees.
Or not even a wetlands, there's a floodplain. A lot of South Florida too.
To ensure, at least on paper, that federal levees won't dramatically raise local flood levels. But those engineering predictions...
Yes, cities are almost exclusively built next to bodies of water and railroads everywhere in the world. This is true, as I also pointed out. Except not every fucking city is constantly underwater all around the world because, you know, people are like, hey, this is not good when the water rises. We should probably do something about it. Make sure that all of the homes are not being underwater every time there's rain. And then they fix it. In America, we're like, nah, you just build a higher levee, okay? Build a higher levee around the rich neighborhood and then make the flood go all the way to the poor neighborhood. Probably a lot of black and brown folk live down there anyway. Who cares? You know, no one will miss those homes. They weren't even that nice. Unlike my McMansion.
Don't always match reality. For instance, the Army Corps designed Valley Park's levee in the early 90s with data and software from that era. Engineers estimated the levee's impact on neighboring areas would be minimal, but by the time it was completed in 2005, the region had grown significantly. More people had built alongside the river, increasing the risk of flooding, which wasn't considered in the original plan. While we don't know the precise impact of Valley Park's levee on neighboring towns just yet, since the levee was built, the region outside Valley Park has suffered 2 of the worst floods in its history. The Army Corps says they've done nothing wrong and that the levee meets all state and federal laws. But there's a growing body of research that shows levees push flooding onto surrounding communities that have lower levees or no levees at all. Researchers measured water levels around 13 levees in the Midwest and found they all increased flooding, some by over 5 feet. As the climate changes and cities push for higher levees, flooding is only expected to get worse, especially along the Mississippi River, which is almost entirely lined with levees. Some of these embankments have been substantially raised since their completion against federal rules, making flooding worse across the river and upstream. So, yeah, we need some levees, but the system for regulating them is broken. Even though the science overwhelmingly shows that constructing higher levees makes flooding worse in the long term, we keep building them taller, passing our problems upstream.
Absolute worst. Just build a wall, baby. That's such an American solution, dude. What you mean? Tell me we got a flooding problem? Not here, not me. Just build a higher wall, brother. That'll do it. Build a goddamn higher wall. That'll fix it. That's right. God dang right, brother. America. Why don't the poor neighborhoods just build a levee too? It's just dirt. It's still expensive, bro. What do you think? Motherfucker said it's just dirt. Yeah, dude. Get the kids to like kick dirt on the side of the river and be like, it's a levee now.